And we are live. What's going on, everybody? Sorry for the late start today. My good friend, wait, I gotta get the my good friend Dawson had to work tonight. He rushed home just to be here with me, so I appreciate it. Dawson, how you doing?
Doing great, Mark. Always a pleasure. I'm honored that you guys had me on, my friend.
I always like talking to you, man. Whether it's in chat or whether it's on the phone or whatever, you're always a good dude to talk to, and I like bouncing all those electronic ideas off you because you and I both have a passion for that advanced gear stuff. I think, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, sir. It kind of boils down. I had to do something because, to get better at fishing, you always hear people say time on the water, right? Well, I work 14 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then when there is an occasional weekend to where the wind's not blowing 30-mile-an-hour gust and it's not raining, pouring down rain, I got to make the best of the time that I got. So I don't have the time to spend and invest all the time on the water. So that's kind of why I got the electronics to where I could make the curve and make a shortcut there.
I totally agree with you. Even you know, the waters I fish in, there's fish there. Just there's a lot of pressure. I like using my electronics to let me know I'm not wasting time fishing where there aren't no fish. For the most part, I can confirm that there's something there. I can confirm what depths to target them at, and you know, I've been called a cheater for having the electronics I do, but I don't know. I got opinions on that we're not going to share because I don't want to hurt no feelings. But
Yeah. Well, hello everybody in chat. I got my computer fired up right here, so I'm.
All right, good deal. For those of you who don't know, Dawson is fishing with Squirrel. I'm sure you've seen him in a lot of the chats. I've been seeing him a lot more in Hog Legs chat every day, which is always a lot of fun. So he usually you were working late there for a long time, so you haven't been around as much as you used to be, which is understandable, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I leave the house about 7:30 in the morning, and I normally roll back in home about 9 o'clock.
That's a
So
long day.
I do that 5 days a week.
That's a long day.
It does make for some long days. So I'm down the
Oh,
retirement window. Hopefully, in a couple more years, I'll be able to slow down a little bit and do a whole lot more fishing. Summertime, I'll get a little bit more time. But while the school's going on and everything, and a lot going on at the school, it's pretty busy.
I can totally understand that. As most of the people know, I work from home, so I'm always at work. So if I can schedule time to get away and fish, I do. This time of year is kind of hard. I'm not doing much ice fishing, but I am looking forward to the nicer weather. Right now, I got my boat all torn up, so I'm kind of on hold, waiting on some parts to get dropped off at my front door. Thanks for nothing, Amazon. I ordered a simple part that I'm kind of dead in the water without, and it was supposed to be overnighted to me for free. Obviously, I wouldn't pay all that money for overnight delivery, but for some reason it got returned to them, and they canceled the order. So I had to order it again directly from Garmin. So it's going to be another 4 days before I see that. So I'm not too happy about that. So what do you say? I say hello to some of the people we got in chat here.
Absolutely.
Oh, look at this. You already got a fan in here. Crappie Day Fish On says Squirrel is fantastic.
Thank you, Crappie Day.
And Miss Jody was in here earlier. She says she is your number one fan.
All right.
Good
Yeah,
deal.
Miss Shirley.
Jody stops in early for all of them. Maybe she'll pop herself in here later. I see Brian B. Catfishing just showed up. What's up, Brian? How you doing? There's Kaz at Catfishing with Kaz. How you doing, dear? Crappie Day Fish On, channel member and supporter. What's going on, my friend? There's Creole Catfishing. I see Dan Thompson. He is a channel supporter as well. Danny Stone Outdoors. What's up, Danny? How you doing, bud? Mike Sampson. How you doing, Sampy? Nubby's Catfishing is here as well. Hey, Panfish Nation. What's going on, Lyle? How you doing? He's probably watching in the background. Oh, there's Jody. What's going on, dear? Ray Smith, channel supporter. Thanks for coming in, Ray. There's Frank over at Twisted Fishing TV. Wabash Nate in the house. What's going on, everybody? If I missed you and I see you pop in a little bit later, I will definitely shout you out. Sampy, hopefully I got you. I don't remember if I did, but I want to make sure I say hello to Mike. He's been around a lot. Also, before we get started, I got some sad news. I was informed, or I saw that our friend James Albaugh passed away earlier this week. So that's kind of bad whenever that happens. I know it made me sad. So you want to make sure to keep his family. I'm not quite sure how much family he has or had, but keep him in your prayers and thoughts, and hopefully he went peacefully. That's pretty much all I know. Also, if you're wondering what Lyle is tonight, Lyle has been doing some family stuff, taking care of some business that he has to drive quite a bit to be able to do that. Doesn't get home for the most part in time to check out the show. That, and he's probably a little bit tired. So he took tonight off, and he took Monday off, and a couple of days last week. He's taking care of a lot of things out there. But keep him in your thoughts as well. He is fine. He is doing good. Nothing to be worried about. He's just taking care of business. So we want to make sure that everything goes smoothly for him. Hey, John Boy's catfishing in the house. He says, hello, Mark and Squirrel. All right, so let's talk about some fishing. So I was watching a couple of your latest videos. One, like always, if you guys don't know, on Squirrel's channel, he does a lot of informational videos, in-depth stuff with a lot of good info, and he answers a lot of questions that you might not even know you had, but you'd be happy to check him out. The last one that I watched on your channel was something as, I don't want to call it trivial, but something as not talked about as how to get temperature display on your Lowrance, correct?
Yeah, Mark, I had I don't know if he's a subscriber. He just, he emailed me, a gentleman did, and told me he bought a new HDS 9, and when he would take his transducer and plug it into his blue port, he wouldn't get any sonar readings, but he would get his depth readings. And then as soon as he plugged it back into port 2, the black port, then he would get all of his side scan, down scan, and 2D, but his depth and his temp would disappear. And I fight that because I use 2 units. I use my HDS Live, and then I've got my HDS 12. So when I connect them together, my HDS 7 pulls information off of my HDS 12. But when I go and put that little 7-inch unit on my kayak and go fishing, then I got to tell it where to pull that water depth and temp from. So I just went on. He was. I was trying to talk to him on the internet and or on email, and I decided to go ahead and put a video up. I figured if he's got the question somebody else would, maybe it would take and help him out right there and be able to take it and get him squared away, because they do it's kind of tricky with Lowrance. You think you'd normally hit that little drop down button, but you got to hit that blue bar to get it to pop up to see where that temp's coming from. And if I'm being too geeky, just stop me. Just
not at all. I understand. Hopefully the people in chat will appreciate it, but definitely it'll be, some of the stuff will be at a higher level. What I've come is, and real quick, Catfishing Cause says she needs prayers, everybody. So send her some prayers. She says her daughter is in the hospital with respiratory failure, possibly put on a vent. So I really, really want you guys to keep her daughter in your thoughts and prayers. So, and also we just got a super chat from my buddy Wayne Hoska. What's going on, Wayne? Good to see my friend. $10 super chat. We appreciate the support. I'm sure Lyle is grateful. Also, Frank over at Twisted Fishing TV says early spring pattern is setting up some places where he's at. So that's good to see. And everybody's giving prayers. So yeah, dealing with the electronics, especially once you start getting some more complicated setups, like I'm starting to get, and a couple of people I know that are, including yourself. Not everybody can work for a company like Apple. I mean, they pay them UI guys, those user interface guys, a heck of a lot of money. Garmin just might not have the staff to go through and do all of that stuff, but that doesn't mean that the communities don't find a way or a workaround or how to get things to work for the most part. That's what I'm learning in this whole electronics endeavor of mine. Like with my Garmin units, I got the live scope transducer. I got a transducer in the trolling motor. I got 2 transducers on the back of my boat, one to show left, one to show right, things like that. I've learned that you can't run them all on at the same megahertz. That doesn't work too well. Mixing, my boat came with a Humminbird, which I'm selling, by the way. If anybody's interested in a Gen 4 Helix 9, contact me. We can work something out. They don't play well together, so I took that out of my boat, which is why I'm selling it. Things like that I've come across. Other things that I've come across in my electronics endeavors is how every time you get in the water, it's different. You got to go through your settings. And it might sound a little intimidating, but it really isn't. Like with the Garmin units, put it on. What I do is I put it on side scan and turn the screen all the way to black so you can barely see, and then turn it up slowly until I see enough detail without it being too cluttered. So things like that you learn. How about you? What are you learning with the Lowrance units?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. A lot of people are afraid, and I was afraid you're going to mess something up and you're not going to be able to fix it, or you're going to mess your whole picture up and not be able to get it back, from the factory settings. And the factory settings are really good, but you always go back to restore default and start start right back to where you started. So you're not going to mess anything up. So go ahead and just hit the buttons and tweak it, and turn your contrast up and down. And the Humminbird, they've got a lot more settings, like scroll speed of the screen and stuff that my Lowrance doesn't have. So you would have a lot more to tweak with it. But and I think your Garmin has more fine tuning with the active target. I say active target, your live scope, than the Lowrance active target, because I just pretty much pull my active target out of the box, and the only thing I do with it, I don't even change the contrast on it. I just I usually dial back. It automatically goes to like a 70-foot range, and I have to mess with my depth. So if I'm in 20 feet of water and it wants to have a depth range of 40 feet, I'll compress that to get those fish as big as I can possibly get on my screen. But I'm not casting at about 50 feet, so I don't need it to read out to 70 feet. It does everything that I need it to do. And you know how frustrating it is with it, people that have it, that you throw that lure out there and they'll come up and they'll look at it and swim right back off. And but it can be challenging, it can be frustrating, but you're not going to mess any of them up. I just say just hit the buttons, and that's what I did.
Restore factory defaults. I know that setting so well. I think the most frustrating part about it is when you're vertical jigging and you get a jig caught in a brush pile and you go to break it free and you see every gosh darn fish on that brush pile just leave. That happens an awful lot. That's pretty disheartening. Let me say hello to a couple people that just came in here. John Boy's Catfishing says, I'm here because of prayers. We're happy to see that. I see Two Stans has made it in. What's going on, Stan? How you doing, my friend? Greg Burgess is in the house. I see LG Bass. There's Palmetto Cats. What's going on? Palmetto's selling his pontoon boat. If you guys are interested, contact him. I see Stonefly 71. He's asking if Lyle's okay. Yeah, Lyle's Lyle's fine. He's just got stuff going on, and he wasn't able to make sure that he'd be here on time. So that's one of the reasons. He's got that family stuff going on. Buckeye Catfishing in the house. What's going on, Buckeye? How you doing? There's my buddy Bugman. Bugman's got his show on Friday mornings. He's taking up the slack where Hogleg and Curtis aren't doing their show. So check him out over at Bugman 22. Bugman, somebody, I got to see if there's anybody in here. Creel, if you could share Bugman's link out, if you would, if you're still here, Creel, I'd appreciate it. Buckeye Catfish, it says, my HDS Live had problems reading below 5-foot depth. After many hours, I found both channels were turned on, even though I only had one transducer attached. So is that both channels or both ports on the back of the unit that he's talking about?
Yeah, you can turn them on. But it shouldn't be, even though it's activated, it shouldn't be reading both or pulling information for both. I have both of mine on, but I'm reading everything off of my active target transducer. So So it's the 3-in-1, the 3-in-1 transducer.
Mhm. You know what I saw, which was a bad thing to see the other day on social media? I saw somebody that had two front-facing sonar uh, transducers mounted on the back of their boat, pointed out in opposite directions from side to side. And he was showing how they were using that instead of side imaging. I'm like, they're getting pretty crazy. That, and I saw that the guy had crappie brakes on his boat too. I was like, this is getting pretty ridiculous, even for me. I saw another guy, the Garmin guru, just put a 16-inch monitor on the front of his boat. They're getting out of control. I can't keep up with the Joneses, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot of money when you're doing that, and it's a lot to keep up with the information. Just I couldn't imagine having two and just trying to see everything. When I'm running side scan and I make a video, I'll go back. I'm looking on side scan when I'm actually running it and I'm talking about it. But then when I go back and edit my video, I'm like, I totally missed that. I totally missed that fish sitting right there. And it is, but having two coming off both sides, that's, yeah, I can't process fast enough to make that even worthwhile.
Well, here's my tip of the day for anybody who uses side imaging. If you're scanning docks, switch it over to that side. You can change. I don't know about a Lowrance. I'm pretty sure it's the same way as Garmin. You can point it in one direction and take up the whole screen, with the starboard side of the boat or the port side of the boat, left or right, and get more pixels in there, and you get a little better defined picture. So that helps you when you're scanning docks for sure.
Yeah.
Buckeye says he talked to Lowrance and they couldn't explain it either. Hey, sometimes when you turn that switch on and off, it'll reset everything. I also see that Lynn's in the house. What's going on? Catfish Fever and Outdoors. How you doing? Let's see what else is going on in chat. So cool. So I also saw in your video that you were starting a log line troll already.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was doing, going where you really don't need a graph this time of the year because you can have a blast. Just you don't have to have a graph, period. Just go back of the creeks and throw some lines out and just drag those jigs. And just an insider tip, you can take a small minnow and tip a jig with a minnow and pull it and have some really good luck doing that. But those fish, there's fish on structure. There's fish that are in 3 or 4 feet of water. I got a buddy that does some bank fishing right now, and he's literally 54-degree, 55-degree water temperature, and he's catching crappie off the bank in 3, 4, 5 feet of water. And I can catch them long lining. You'll see them stacked on structure, but they're kind of those that are kind of scattered out when you're long lining. Those are active fish. A lot of times you'll be on structure, and those fish, they may not be active. They're just sitting on the structure. They're not eating. But those fish that are swimming out in little packs and schools, they're feeding, and they'll school up like bass. Like I thought I was chasing bait one time, and I threw a cast net over the side of the boat and came up with a cast net full of crappie. And of course I had to throw them back, but still, I mean, that this time of the year is my favorite time, just to be out there pulling lines and just not even worrying about a graph, really. The only reason I had it turned on and I filmed it is just to show where the fish were kind of scattered all over the place.
Hope springs eternal. When I'm pulling lines, I like to have that side image on there if I got lines off the side of the boat, because when I see them fish, them wolf packs, them schools of fish, I like that feeling of hoping they're going to bite, see what they're going to get. So yeah, I agree 100%. If they're off those brush piles, they're feeding if they're floating, and if you got bait fish close to them, I find that they're a heck of a lot more active fish. But I mean, one of the reasons I really like crappie fishing so much is because nothing's guaranteed, not even guaranteed. There is no rhyme or reason to what they're doing. I've caught solo fish out in the middle of nowhere, right? Nothing else around. I've found big schools of them where they won't bite. Big, huge brush piles where I'll catch two and they'll go all tight-lipped on you. They'll be deep. They're supposed to be out in a basin and they're not. I'll check a whole lake worth of drops and I won't see a fish on that whole drop, but I'll go where I know they're not supposed to be. And guess what? They're there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still in the whole process of learning how to find them a little better, which is why I've kind of fallen back on becoming so electronics heavy in my boat, is because not only do I want to find them and catch them, but I want to learn what they're doing.
Yeah, I got a really good buddy of mine who is a guide here locally, and I was talking to him, several years ago about locating fish, following the bait fish, and what's the best way to learn. And he told me, he said, don't try to fish the whole lake. He said, take one creek arm, and he said, and fish it for one species of fish, and just do that. And he said, and then when you pattern that, it'll work in a different creek arm. Don't just jump all over and run all over the lake. That's helped me a lot. And kind of like you're saying, like they're all over the place, and they really are. Like I could go right now and I guarantee you that I can scan and see them on some bridge pilings. And then I can find them on a brush pile in shallower water. And those bridge piling fish, we got really clear water, and I'll pull maybe one, maybe two off of it, and then it's like you're talking about, they lock up. They're not going to bite. That's it. So then you just move on. But but usually like those fish, if you can pull a couple of those in the boat, those are usually my 15, 16-inch crappie.
I ain't caught a 14-inch crappie in a while, so it's been it. Well, actually, no. Last time I was up in Wisconsin on Lake Monona, there's a section of that lake. Well, we'll get into that. There's kind of a story that I wanted to share with everybody to kind of give a little perspective to how electronics can hurt you, not just help you. So, but yeah, the waters I fish, bridges are high traffic areas, so I'm not able to fish bridges unless it's like late at night. What's going on, Sean T? How you doing, bud? So it's kind of limited to that. We don't have any creeks. I just learned recently, you know what the difference between a creek and a river is?
Go ahead, fill me in.
A river is 40 miles long or longer.
Okay.
So the Fox River here is probably the size of one of your creeks over there, just longer. So
Okay.
it's not a big river, but that kind of was kind of cool. Learn what's going on, Lance. How you doing? And a lot of the lakes we fish, they're like I said, heavily pressured. There isn't creeks to fish in, so I'm pretty much stuck fishing a body of water that's not real huge, but it's big enough that it's almost impossible to fish all day. So I'm just waiting on those 50-degree water temps to start long lining and finding the fish that way. So
Gotcha.
One thing I have been doing, and I started doing this last time I fished in Ohio with Betty Jean, is we'll run the big motor and find out where those schools of fish are, mark waypoints on the graph, and then record a path through them and do that. I think that's been a good way of producing fish in the types of water that I fish. So I'm able to scan a lot of water that way. But dividing and conquering a body of water into pieces like that makes a lot of sense to me, especially if you can find all the different scenarios that you think the fish are on. If you can find a drop on there, a creek arm on there, a couple of brush piles, and even some open or deeper water, I don't see why you couldn't be able to figure out where the fish are if you can find them in that section of the body of water you're fishing. What's the name of the body of water so that people know that you fish at?
Mainly I'm fishing Lake Kiwi.
Kiwi, that's right.
Hartwell some.
Mm-hmm.
I normally take a trip this time of the year down to Clark's Hill, down there where Freddie, closer to his neck of the woods. That's a really good lake to catch crappie this time of year, pulling, doing the long lining. But Joe Cassie is above me. It's a really clear lake. It's in places it's like 350 feet deep. It's just super clear mountain lake, kind of in the gorges. And then as you come out of the mountains, it drops into Kiwi, which is super clear water. And then it gets a little muddier in Hartwell, where they have the Bass Masters tournament. They've held it there several times. But it's a large body of water, not not as deep as the two upper lakes, but a lot more fish, a lot more variety of fish like kiwi. I'm either going to catch Kentucky spotted bass. It's full of them. I
We
have
got them up here too. I don't know how, but we got them up here too.
so they're ferocious. Like they gorge on every bait fish. So I'll catch those all the time, even long line. But you get down into Hartwell, they stock stripers and hybrids in that lake.
Mm-hmm.
So
Are there any trout in that lake that's real deep, the 300-foot lake?
Yeah, there's lake trout. People
There's
catch.
lake trout?
They stock it with browns and rainbows.
Yeah. They get of any size or?
That in the news here lately, I think there was a couple of 6-pounder plus caught, 25-inch fish.
That's a good size. That's a good size.
So they got to be 15. They got to be 15 inches to keep. You're going to catch a lot of them. I think those stockers are, around that 14 and a half. You'll catch those. People will go up there in the summertime and they'll run downriggers and troll for them. I usually take a couple of night trips up there and drop some live bait down and fish for them, kind of like you would for striper.
Mm-hmm.
Same type thing on that lake, but it's it's got a lot of lake trout in it, and there's a few lake trout on the upper end of Kiwi, right where the Joe Cassie Dam is. But yeah, so it's just totally different bodies of water. Part of Lake Kiwi, you can't throw a cast net. No, you can't even have it on your boat. And in Joe Cassie, you can't have one on your boat, period. They made that illegal to keep from commercial fishermen coming up because the lakes are so clear. They put out a big sodium light, draw those bait fish in, and just load up on them. So they made it so now you can carry like a sabiki rig up there and catch your bait, but you can't have a cast net. So
can you use the full 5 hooks on those sabikis?
Yeah, you can have multiple hooks on there, and I'm talking about those little small sabikis. Yeah,
they sell them here too, but you got to cut them down to 2 hooks. So it is what it is. I could have used a sabiki rig when I was fishing in the Bahamas. That would have been a little more I think productive than what I was using, but I got on some fish. Anyways, Frank from Fishing TV, let's see what he has to say. He says, the very short ice season here will work out to be a better open water season. The fish didn't get pounded all year. I never thought about it that way, Frank, but that makes sense. Dawson wouldn't know about the ice fishing, so.
Not a bit. I don't know about salting ramps, having to deal with any of that. Or like we were talking before, I drive a diesel. You're talking about it gelling up. Like that's all news to me. I'm like, what? You mean if I drive up there to see you, Mark, I got to worry about my fuel gelling up?
That's only if it can happen. I've driven diesels for like 25 years, and this is the first time I ever did. But we had 20 degree below zero temps for almost a week straight, so that kind of took its toll. And I'm thinking the place I've been buying diesel from didn't have as good a product as I would hope it did. It probably were cheaping out on the additive. But anyways, Wayne says Kiwi is a great fishing lake, Mark, because Wayne used to live out by me, and I think he moved out by you, so he would know. He's a good guy.
Okay.
There's Buck too, and there's Guerrero. What's going on, Guerrero? How you doing? Yeah, if you guys could please hit that thumbs up, we'd appreciate it. I know Lyle would for sure. Yeah, we got a lake up here. I'm about 25 minutes south of the Wisconsin border, and we got Lake Geneva just on the other side of the border, and that's a 180-foot lake, and there's some big lake trout in there. I haven't targeted them, but I know guys who go out there in the middle of summer, and they'll go out there with 1-ounce jigs, and they'll rip jigs in that kind of water, and they'll come up with like 20-pound lake trout. So that might be something to try this year, but we'll see. The road is paved with good intentions, and you run out of time and you can't fish all that stuff, but it'd be kind of cool.
That's the time.
You mentioned the guys that troll for them and stuff. You know what would be really good if we can figure out a way to use small downriggers for a crappie, because I don't know if you know this. I know a lot of the guys who fish on the big lake here, they can see their downriggers on their side imaging when they drop them right up next to the boat, because it's behind that, so they know exactly what depths their baits are at. I think that'd be pretty pretty cool to have for sure. So maybe we can think of a way like that, Dawson. That could be a video we can work on. We'll see, because that's my biggest problem with long lining is it's kind of hard to know what depths you're at unless you spend a lot of time on the water trolling over like flats that are, let's say, 6 feet. If you're going 3/4 of a mile an hour with 16-ounce jig on 6-pound test at 100 feet behind the boat, if you start dragging, that you're at 6 feet the next time you meet all those check boxes. So, but that gets a lot to keep track of, don't it?
Yeah, and that's what in the video, that's why I don't use different weight lines. I try to keep it as consistent as I can, and I'll either use a 16th or a 32nd ounce jig. But that's it. I don't really deviate from that either, because of what you're saying. So it's, finding a sandbar that's not going to snag you up and break your jigs off. That's the best thing. There's a lot of places like that on Kiwi to where you can pull across, and then that way you can see, how far that jig's actually running, at different speeds. So I can run across it at 0.9 and see if it's running 4 feet down, and then drop it down to 0.7 and see what that does to it. But you've got active target, you can flip that around and you can see those jigs on there.
You can't see them jigs on there, and it's funny you mention it. One of the parts I'm waiting for is a plug for the new trolling motor I got, and I was planning on mounting that live scope on that trolling motor, but we might change our mind. We'll see. I still need the power plug, but we'll get that figured out. We'll see.
Yeah,
But yeah, I thought about that too. I even thought about mounting that live scope transducer on the back of the boat, but I do too much single pole fishing to do that. I need to be able to move it, and I don't really use it for catfishing at all. I just use it for crappie and white bass, and pretty much find some bait every now and then. So that works pretty good for that though.
the convenience of it is nice, having it mounted on the back. Of course, I fish out of a pontoon boat.
Yep.
And so I can open up that back gate, and I literally have a ram ball that I just hook mine onto. Now I have a second ram ball. I just haven't gotten around to putting it on the front of the boat. And I need to, because every time I get out there and the wind shifts and it blows my boat around, it makes it really difficult, because you're constantly fighting keeping those fish in that narrow beam on that transducer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a challenge. It's very frustrating. I'm like, eventually I'm just going to break down. I'm going to put those 3 screws, bring a drill in here and put the 3 screws in that ram ball and be done with it right there by my trolling motor on the front of the boat, and problem solved, right? And you're talking about downrigger. I got a downrigger too that I'm ready to mount. I just haven't mounted it. And that's what I was thinking about doing actually, is seeing if I could get a crappie to bite on with pulling a downrigger ball, behind the boat, maybe tie up a fly, hand tie on a bare hook with no weight, and just drag it weightless, and whatever depth I want to drop that downrigger. I don't know. I just may make it too complicated. I just wanted to try something different, just to mess around and see if I could get a fish to bite it.
Who else make fishing too complicated? Come on, that's not true. You can make it as complicated as possible. One of the reasons I like pond fishing is because I can drop all that complicated stuff or leave that complicated stuff at home and get me a jar of Berkeley 1-inch gulps and some number 4 hooks, go out there and just catch a mess of bluegills or even some good sized bass and stuff like that. So there's a time and place for everything. But yeah, it's again, I'm a computer analyst by trade. So information is what that's been my bread and butter almost, most of the second half of my adult life, I should say. So the more information I can get, I think the more informed decisions I make. And I think I'm more successful when I do that. And that's my biggest reason for electronics and stuff. So how's your fishing been? I saw you caught like 2 on the last video, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's I went out. I've got another one that I've got to edit and put up. And I pulled, and I actually started long lining, but we've had a lot of rain, and it washed a lot of debris. And that's one thing that, if you are pulling lines and And when I say debris, I'm not talking about logs and stuff. I'm just talking about pine needles, leaves, just little trash in the
Yeah.
water. And that'll hang up, and you're constantly, if you've got 4 or 5 lines thrown out, you're constantly reeling back in, cleaning it off. So I got really tired of doing that, and I went and pulled over on a brush pile and dropped my active target. And I pulled 4. I pulled a right out of 15-inch fish off of it, and
Nice.
the other 3 wasn't that big. But I've got a lot of good shots that I'm going to put in that video. I say a lot. I got 2 for sure of the fish coming up. I felt it on the line. I go to set the hook, and I snatched the jig out of its mouth. You can watch the streak come across the screen on the graph, and where I just pulled it right away from it. Of course they swim back down, but it's funny watching them. They're it's it's a it's a fun thing to do, and it's a very frustrating thing to do, to see it. Before, I would take and just go out to a brush pile and either throw a marker buoy or either mark it on my graph and then use that 0.1 and kind of throw in the direction of it. I've got some videos on there doing that. And then I'm just sitting there concentrating on fishing, and I'm not ever looking at a screen.
Yep.
And you don't know how many fish are doing that to you're just fishing it, pulling it through different speeds, stopping it, whatever, until you pick up and move on. But you're not seeing how many fish pay attention to that jig, go up and look at it, and then swim away.
That kills me. It kills me. It's like a curse and a blessing at the same time, but it's all part of it. I'm getting better at dealing with it and just saying that, hey, that's fishing. It's not definitely catching. So I mean, but I still use my marker buoys too. There's a couple of spots that I fish, or a couple of brush piles, I should say, out here at a local state park, and it's too hard to cast into it because it's right around this windy point that's always windy. That wind comes around that point, blows my boat. I can't imagine how bad it would be on a pontoon boat. If you guys were wondering, Dawson does fish out of a pontoon boat, which is a little more of a sail, I'd imagine, right?
It is. Wind's going to move it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so when you're fishing, it's constantly going. If the wind's shifting, it's going back and forth. And we don't have current. If I had current, like when I go take a trip to the Tennessee River, that's no problem. It's going to keep the boat straight. But when you're on a lake and the wind never blows in the same direction constantly, yeah, it can be frustrating.
That's not always true. The wind here on the Fox River blows up current all the time, so it kind of cancels itself out. The little bit of current and a little bit of wind would make for a bad day. If you don't have that drift sock out, you're not going to be able to drag baits for catfish. That's for sure. I learned that the hard way. I went out and I got a couple of small drift socks from even my little boat, and it made a big difference. But yeah, I get what you're saying. If it's a dead calm day, it makes life a heck of a lot easier. That's for sure. I'm still getting used to lake fishing. I don't like that spot lock on a lake with no breeze or no wind. That really makes your life kind of miserable. That's where those marker buoys really come into play, because you know where you're casting, you know how to use a little more, like SK says, boat control to keep your boat placed in the right place. So I'm still learning that. For those of you that don't know, I haven't fished out of a boat, but I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years for now, and I'm still learning every day. It's a different animal than bank fishing. So I would know what time of year, Dawson, where to go to find the crappie, off the bank. It wouldn't be often, and it wouldn't be all year, but I knew, in April, I'd know where to go, and I'd know where to go in the fall and start looking. And I would spend a week waiting for them fish to get where I could get access to them, because everything's private land on a lot of these places. It's hard to get to those spots. So
yeah, then that's like Kiwi. It's built up all the way around it, so there's not a lot of bank access. Same with there's more on Hartwell, but a lot of people fish around the bridges, and there's a lot of brush. People put a lot of brush around the bridge pilings and stuff on that lake, so you can bank fish Hartwell and catch crappie pretty easy. Like it's and it's nice just to go out and like you're saying, and take one pole and one jig and and catch, 3 or 4 in the afternoon right after work, something like that. There's a buddy of mine that does that, about every chance he gets, about every other day. But he's not working at 9 o'clock at night like I am either.
Yeah. And unless some of these people are single, they stop on their way home from work or out at lunch and stuff. They get a chance to do all that. Oh, and before I forget, I want to wish everybody out there in chat a happy Valentine's Day. Forgive me for forgetting, but the news about James Albo is kind of important to me, so I wanted to make sure that I got that out. So make sure that you give your significant other a big hug and some attention, because they're the ones that either are fishing with you or let you go fishing and do without you. So Guerrero Balgray's got a comment. He says he likes to drift fish holes with a jig and a minnow for channels. That's always fun too. Definitely. And Wayne says that Dawson has an awesome looking pontoon boat. I agree 100%. So what kind of pontoon boat are you in?
It's a 21-foot sun tracker, the fishing barge. And I actually bought it. It's a used boat that was left out in the field for about 3 years and never taken to the lake. So it basically sat there and baked, and the carpet completely deteriorated, and the seats and upholstery was gone, and so I completely redid the boat, and that's actually how the boat got its name. That's how my channel got its name. I brought that boat home and I backed it down the driveway, and my wife asked me, what in the world what did you bring to the house? It looks like a family of squirrels had a party in the boat. So there you go. It's stuck and it's fishing with squirrels. So so I completely ripped it all the way down to the deck, put a coat of fiberglass on the deck, went back with carpet, and hindsight, I probably would go back with a rolled rubber flooring on it, but it's nice in the summertime. It doesn't get hot. It's comfortable. I can still hose it out, but I use it for fishing. I mean, it's set up, and my seats aren't mounted. I can move them and slide them around. I thought about them like, maybe I want it right here. And about the time I figured I would put some screws in it to lock that seat down, I'd want it shifted and moved. So now I just take and pull them around. It's kind of wide open. I can pretty much set it. The only thing that's bolted down in it is the console and the little compartment where it was a changing station in the pontoon.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's my battery holding station and my tackle box holding station. So I've got my trolling motor batteries, my 3 that are sitting underneath it, and I've got everything from drift socks to my tackle boxes and everything like that in it. So it's nice. I got an enclosure for it. I got a full bimini top so I don't burn up in the summertime. I don't have to go 60 miles an hour down the water. I'm okay running 15 miles an hour on the water. So it's enjoyable. It can be a challenge in the wind, and especially loading the boat. I've had crosswinds before to where I got caught out on Hartwell. Matter of fact, I was fishing back up a creek, and it was calm when I launched the boat, and the wind was blowing. I mean, sustained like 20-mile-an-hour winds. So I had to back my trailer about halfway down the ramp and get a run and go. Like I had to just throttle it and go. There wasn't any easing it on there. And you got to do that. There's times that you have to do that. If you don't, you're not getting that pontoon boat on that trailer. A V-hull is a whole lot easier to load up than that pontoon boat when the wind's blowing.
My parents had a pontoon boat when I was growing up, and guess who was the guy who had a trailer? That sucker. You're looking at him right here, so I can relate with that. They had a 24-footer, and that thing was a nightmare. And we had it on the Tippecanoe River, so not only was it the wind, it was some current as well. So that adds to it another dimension. But it was kind of a pain in the butt. But we only had to do it a couple times a year. Bob over at Fins and Vine says he's finally getting used to mastering control over his 26-foot pontoon, but some days the wind wins. That's true. 100%. Jerry Parker's joining us. What's going on, Jerry? Hopefully I'll get to fish with him this April. We're going to go chase some of those 14 and 16-inch crappies like you catch down in Southern Illinois. So I'm looking forward to that. I got to get me a 2-pounder. That's what I'm looking for this year. That's one of my goals. You got any goals for this year?
Goals for this year. I'm so busy right now, Mark. I can't even think of goals. I mean, it's um, it's competition time for my students. I'm going to be a lot of Saturdays working with them, getting them ready for state competition, teach building construction. So we're that's going to be a lot of Saturdays. It's still trapping season right now. I didn't mention that before, but I've gotten back into trapping.
Oh,
So
cool.
I've that's over March the 1st. So I'm still doing that on top of it, and going and checking traps in the morning before work.
You're a busy dude.
And so yeah, it's, you know, I think in about a month and a half, 2 months, I'll be able to think about goals. I'll be able to think about what I want to get back to Tennessee. Still got my Tennessee license. I love going over there to Chattanooga, around Nickajack where Bobcat is, and Pontotoc. It's just a beautiful place, and a ton of fish in that river. Just different. I don't get to fish. We don't have rivers like that here. And
Yeah,
just a new element. So I guess my goal is to get out and just to fish away from just home, you know.
I happen to have the same goal this year, so I'm looking forward to that too. And I'd like to get down there to Tennessee. We'll see what we can happen. What'll happen. I've been talking to somebody that all right, we're not going to get into too many details. Somebody down there that's a friend of mine that I've had on the show in the past, so I might get some directions out his way. A little further on the west side of the state, which is closer to me. But anyway, so yeah, that 4 pound crappie is my goal. Fish a little different, a lot more different waters this year, and get that 40-pound flathead. We're going to look for that 30-pound channel this year. I'm not guaranteed that we're going to get it, but we're going to look for it this spring. Other than that, it's just maybe make some more videos, get back into making videos. We'll see if we'll do some lives and stuff. But other than that, we'll keep doing Panfish Nation because I enjoy seeing a lot of people here in chat, and definitely like hanging out with Lyle and guests like yourself. So
Now
if you're ever out this way, you make sure you give me a holler, and I'll do the same when I get out there. You're one of the people I'd love to fish with out that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to take and come up there and fish Mendota. Is there now? I know you guys channel catfish up there. Is there crappie in that lake?
Right. And okay, back to the story with the Lake Monona, which is one of the sister lakes. That whole area in Madison, Wisconsin is like a chain of lakes. They're all interconnected, right? Some you can travel from lake to and not. It all depends on the body water, but Monona's got pretty good walleye fishing, and it's got pretty decent crappie fishing. There's a spot over there that I fish once a year in the spring, maybe twice a year. That's a small area. It's kind of commandeered off with some railroad tracks, a road, a college. So it's kind of a bay that's enclosed. It's kind of hard to get in there, but if you can get in there, you'll do all right. And the first year I got my live scope, I went out there and I must have scanned that whole bay from front to back, front to back, front to back, back and forth, left to right, whatever. Couldn't figure out where the heck the fish were. Couldn't figure out where the fish were. I was getting all disheartened, and I finally said to myself, what would you do if you didn't have it? And I kind of looked up, and it was a windy day, like the kind that we dread. And I looked at my windy app and saw that the wind's been blowing in the same direction up there for the past 3 days. Oh, did we just lose a picture or signal? That could be just on my computer. And I noticed that it was blowing into a corner of this area. I went over there and I just slayed them. So that goes to tell you that, you know, even if you have all those good electronics and you dump all that money into it, that you need to not forget what you've learned in the past. Let me reload my screen here. Make sure we still got everybody here. Yep, there it is. Sorry about that, folks. And since I reloaded that, hey, folks, if you haven't hit the thumbs up, I'm sure Lyle would appreciate it. If you did, I would as well. Please do that. And make sure that down in the description, I have a link to Dawson's channel, Fishing with Squirrel. Go ahead and check him out. He's got a lot of good content. He's got a pretty good following over there. I think once you subscribe, you'll be happy you did. So,
thank you, Mark.
Not a problem. Hey, I'm always willing to help. Definitely. Lance just came in. What's going on, Lance? How you doing? Bob says everything looks good, so that's good. You ever do any bluegill fishing out by you?
For bait, I
Yeah,
guess
me
like
too.
everybody that catfish, that's in
Yeah.
here, I absolutely like, around the docks. I'll take some. I'll either take bread balls or gulp minnows, and that's how I catch my bait. I'll just
Yep.
drop it over and pull them out around the docks and stuff. So, but not for, I'll catch the occasional really good sized bluegill, but I'll turn those back. I'm after the ones that I'm going to cut in half
Yep.
and put out for cut bait.
I saw somebody mention this on TikTok the other day when I was checking it out. They're called them breeders and eaters. I like to say responsible harvest, and that goes for even bluegill as well, because bluegill can be pretty tasty, but they make great catfish bait. Crappie makes good catfish bait. I ain't gonna lie. Know a lot of people that use them here on the river. There's no size or creel limit, so there's that gray line between using them for bait and not using them for bait. So it all depends on what you want to do and whether you want to eat them or use them for bait or just put them back. It all depends on the fishing I'm going. So our river over here is a little harder to catch crappie on. I do all right. I'm getting a little better at it. I haven't spent too much time fishing for them on the river. I've been trying to figure out the walleye game here. And I think I'm doing a little better. I might be going to fish the Pecatonica here in a week. Was out in Winnebago County, about an hour and a half away from here. I got an invite to go out there and fish, and a buddy of mine just slayed the saugers out there, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited about this year. I'm looking forward to fishing 100%. So,
So
and
that
not only,
walleye fishing that you're talking about doing, like I've watched a few shows of, because we've got one lake that supposedly has some walleye in it.
Mhm.
I've never caught one. But do you use those bottom bouncing rigs like a piece of wire?
I don't when I troll for walleye, which I haven't done too often. I just use what are they called, flicker shads, the smaller flicker shads by Berkeley. I use the shallow ones because our river is pretty shallow, and I just make sure that they're in the mud or in the gravel. They're hitting bottom. You get snagged up a lot, but those walleye will go on there. The ones that I've caught trolling, it's been like that. Other than that, it's a minnow and a jig, and keep it on the bottom, drag it across the bottom, yo-yo it up off the bottom. Plastics, I catch them the same way too, but I am by no means an expert. Those are just the ways that I've caught them in the past. I know people that catch them pulling Mr. Twisters, like if they're dragging for twister tails, dragging or long lining for crappie the same way. You just got to get them baits right off the bottom for the most part. So if you got them, actually, Richard Jean just had a video. He was catching a really big sauger, because saugers don't get all that big, and he got a couple, I think a 15 and an 18-incher on video, which is kind of unheard of for sauger. Those are big, and he's fishing down there in Alabama. What is it, Gunnersville, I believe he fishes. He was in the dam over there. So if you're looking for that, looking for some good fish to eat, they're fun to catch. They're good. But if you do catch them, I always like to tell people this: don't throw away the cheeks. That's the best part of it. Make sure you get them out when you're cleaning them. You guys have walleye out by you?
One mountain lake supposedly has it in there. It's a smaller lake. It's fed by the river that runs right in between Georgia and South Carolina. So, but it's Bull Sluice. It's Tugelo Lake. The locals call it Bull Sluice. It's actually right down the lake that right below where they filmed Deliverance. So, yeah, and it is that river flows right into this lake, and it's supposed to be chock full of walleye, white catfish, crappie, and there's some good bluegill. I went through with and just did some bluegill fishing, just beating the banks just to have fun, just catch and release with them in the kayak. But it's hard to launch a. It's got like a 25 horsepower limit on it, depending on if you launch from Georgia, if you have a South Carolina registration or a Georgia registration, one or the other. One's a 20 and one's a 25. We have all kind of weird regulations depending on what your registration's on your boat and which side of the lake you're launching on, and so you got to kind of watch all that. But I don't. On the South Carolina side, it's a really steep ramp. It would have to be a small John boat that you would launch and put in. I just roll the kayak down there and hop in it and fish it. but you don't have to worry about pleasure boaters coming rolling you up either. So it's a nice little mountain lake. I would love to I just never caught any and never fished for any, and really don't know how to. So I'm like,
It's pretty much that's pretty much it from what I hear. As far as pulling those bottom bouncers, I've never done that. So while I like worms, they like minnows. Most fish do. You just got to find them. If you got your electronics running and you're in your boat, you can see them potted up. They're usually pretty fast swimmers, so they'll move pretty good. Especially if you got that perspective mode. I know on my live scope I believe Active Target has that mode too, right? Where you can turn the.
Yeah, it does, but I don't have it set up to have
You
on
don't have it set up?
kayak or anything like that. Mm-mm.
I was just laughing at Jerry Parker's comment. I'm not going to put that up on the screen. He's thinks he's
I figured everybody would get a kick out of that. I'm like,
we were talking about that on I think we were talking about that on Hog Leg show one night, late night, and he was getting all upset that we were talking about it being filmed in Georgia. So a little backstory to that deliverance comment. So
oh, that's pretty funny.
yeah, that's my experience with walleye. I got a chance to fish with my buddy Eric, who happens to be a guide. He's actually a major league. He quit guide. I don't know if he quit guiding because he's doing major league fishing right now. So he's been working his butt off on that. But I plan on getting up there by him on the Wisconsin River and do a little walleye fishing real soon here. As soon as I was going to go next week, if I got my boat all put back together, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So maybe it'll wait another week. Maybe the weather will get nicer too.
So what about night fishing? Do you do any night fishing? I know right now you got
flathead fishing. I'll fish at night. Yeah. Well, a little backstory to why I flathead fish at night. It's a little easier. I ain't gonna lie. As far as they're on the move. At least I believe they are. Also here, the river's kind of busy, and keeping a bait on the bottom or placing baits where you need them is almost impossible when you got 30-foot bajas in a river that's 100 feet wide or 100 yards wide at some point. So it doesn't work. So I do a lot of night fishing. It kind of messes up my sleep patterns, but it's all worth it when I put that fish in the boat. And I don't catch as many as some people do around the country, but if we have a 2 fish night's a really good night, that I come home with a smile on my face. So, but I'll spend all night to get that one fish. Definitely.
Now I know you catfish at night, but do you ever panfish at night?
I don't. I never had to. I've never tried it. I'd like to try fishing under a green light. But when I fish all night, okay, when I fish for crappie, usually I got to drive at least an hour. When I'm catfishing here on the river, I got a 12-minute ride to get on the water.
Okay.
So, it is what it is. That's pretty much, I'm kind of an angler of opportunity here around, near here. Now that I got this new boat too, I can keep all my gear in the boat. It might be a little easier to make that decision to go up a little further north and chase them around at night. But I do want to get one of those green lights, and I see they're making rechargeable ones. That might be the way to go. I ain't having to hook more and more stuff up to more batteries. I got enough batteries in my boat. I'm putting a 5th one in there now. That's enough.
So the reservoir that I'm on, there's a house on all the way around it. I mean, it's full, but there's a lot of people that put green lights on their docks. Mm-hmm. And right now that's because that water temperature is 54, 55 degrees. There you can do really good catching crappie and bass. They're all attracted to it, but they're loading up some pretty good crappie right now on those green lights tonight. I haven't got a chance to try it. And my buddy said, "Oh, I went out the other night and we caught 15 of them," and and I'm like, and then they'll just green light hop. They'll go from one to the next to the next to the next. There's that many green lights on the
really.
Yeah, they'll be all lit up. So yeah, then again, that's just time, getting time to get out there and give it a shot. So it should. They say it's good fishing, so if anybody's got time, go hit those green lights right now if your water temp's around that 55 degrees.
It blows my mind when I see those videos, all them bait fish swimming around those green lights. It's crazy. And I believe that they work because a couple of my bank flathead spots, there's lights that are on 24/7, and there's a reason why them flathead come back, and that's because them lights attract the bait fish, even if they're 20 feet up in the air. I'm a firm believer that they do. So
Yeah.
Jerry says he's looking forward to nighttime trips on the river as well.
Yeah, I agree with Fins and Fines. He's talking about how much more peaceful it is. It is nice just to be out there at nighttime, and you don't have to worry about getting washed out by anybody, and nobody else, especially this time of year. If you're out this time of year, most pleasure boaters aren't out. There'll be a few. There'll be some people out there that's got scuba gear on. And they'll be out there riding a jet ski, but
our water
normally,
temp is 31 degrees. I had a buddy of mine, not 33 degrees. I'm sorry. I had a buddy of mine send me a picture of a guy on a jet ski in a wetsuit yesterday.
yeah, that's way too dedicated. Yeah.
It's crazy. They're just getting all excited because usually everything's still locked up with ice this time of year. So it's kind of odd to see that river opened up. So let's see what we got here. If we didn't miss anything. Well, Dawson, I appreciate you stepping up and helping me out in Lyle's absence. I know that he's grateful for that too. I had a lot of fun talking to you today. I want to remind everybody that Dawson's link is in the description. Check him out. You're going to like his content. Also, we will be back here next Wednesday. Hopefully, Lyle will be back by then. I'm pretty sure that he will be. So make sure you come back next Wednesday night. We got the bait shop tomorrow and Catfish Weekly on Monday as usual. And also, don't forget all the other shows that are out there like Stan's show on Friday nights and Jody right after that. So everybody, thank you everybody for chat and Dawson, it was always nice. It's always nice talking to you, bud.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks again. I always watch, Catfish Weekly and the bait shop, and I just not commenting because I'm usually driving. So I'm always listening when I'm coming back home, but thoroughly enjoy it. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody. And tight lines. Enjoy the fishing. It's getting good, and it's just going to get better as these water temps come up.
I think it's going to be a good year for us all. And remember to keep everybody in your prayers, including Kaz and everybody else who needs a Kaz's daughter, definitely. And we'll see everybody next week. Happy Valentine's Day. Bye.